Hello, everybody. This video is for both my geography class and my online social studies class. Some pretty big stuff is happening in Washington, D.C. at the moment, and I just kind of wanted to, you know, make this video in kind of a way to help you essentially understand um, a little bit about what's going on in here. I know in my geography class, we're about to do the presentations of your papers that you wrote in civics. And in your presentations tomorrow and Friday, you're going to be asked on how our country should address certain issues. In my online class, you're about to learn about how the people who created this country um, ratified the Constitution. And in both my civics class and my online social studies class, um, we also want to cover some current events. So, what I want to do is just share my screen and allow you to see some of the sources that I use when taking in major events like today. So, one source that I love to use is the BBC. The reason why I like this one is that it is a source that is outside the United States, and it's not really caught up in any of the political biases that sometimes American news sources are a part of. You've probably heard that, like, MSNBC is a little bit more left leaning, a little bit more liberal. Um, and Fox News is a little bit more conservative, and CNN usually is a little bit more neutral. So what I normally do when looking at news and when looking at current events, um, I do like to start with the BBC, and immediately you see that there is the headline for the BBC is the violent pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol. An armed mob smashes windows and clash with police as they storm the Capitol building. Um, and not to be outshined by the events in Washington, D.C., there was an election yesterday in the state of Georgia as a runoff. They have a state rule where if a representative that is elected does not get over 50% of the votes, um, they have to do a runoff. So let's just start with the Washington, D.C. stuff first. Click on the article, and along with this video, um, I'll post this source just so you can kind of see and again make your own decisions. This is why you take a civics class or a geography class, or if you're in my online class, this is why you take a social studies class. You um, do a lot of critical thinking and reading. Um, so what we see here is just a live reporting, which again is one of the reasons why I love the BBC, because you can go to other news sources like CNN, um, and we'll just click on that right now. Let's see what they have to say. We'll let it load up. And again, you've got similar news stories. One of the reasons, again, just comparing the homepage to the BBC of CNN, CNN and the BBC. You look at the CNN website, and there's a lot of big words, a lot of big, like literally large words, like large font words. And then again, you have the running summary of what other people are what's going on. Um, the BBC website, it's a little bit more subdued there. Uh, well, you can also go to Fox News, I guess, just to kind of see what's going on there. Um, Again, more pictures. A little bit more subdued in terms of what it looks like to you as a reader, you as a citizen, and how you take it in. Again, lots of stuff on the election in Georgia, excuse me. Um, Now we can open up a tab, go to MSNBC. And my reaction right now to all of this is, again, this isn't what I teach. You know, when you learn about how our government functions, um, I know in my civics class we covered, maybe not so much like explicitly, but there was a major election early in our country's history, the 1796 election, which saw the political party that was in charge for a long time, the Federalist Party, lose out to the Democratic Republicans of Thomas Jefferson. John Adams was president. If you're in my online class, we're just now getting into this. And again, here's the splash page for MSNBC. Um, they started auto playing the video. That's nice, but again, when you're taking in the news, it's really important to, have an understanding about what's going on. There's some video being played there. You see the protesters inside the Capitol building. Um, um, Waving Trump flags. Um, Pretty interesting to see. But like I said, when I take in the news, I try to look at, because being an American myself, the people that I talk to on an everyday basis are Americans. Um, so I'm just going to go ahead and close this tab, close the CNN tab, and just kind of stick with the BBC tab. Um, the reason why I like, again, the BBC website's a little bit more subdued. If you want to click on the article, you can. It's not an autoplay. You still see some pretty wacky images. I assume Capitol Police, potentially Secret Service, um, pointing guns outside of a window. You see that door clearly barricaded. That looks like the Senate chamber, or it could be the House of Representatives. And again, you just kind of take it all in. Um, I know in my online class we've talked about the frustrations of this summer. Black Lives Matter. This person, Van Jones, commenting on, what if Black Lives Matter people did this? The representative getting into that's a Twitter post, Twitter. And that's the thing. A lot of people are taking in their news right now through only social media, which isn't necessarily the best way to go about doing it, because when you get your news from social media, you essentially only take in what other people have said. And it's sometimes biased. Maybe you don't follow somebody who reports. Maybe you follow just your friends or your family or other people that have tried to make a name for themselves by making bold claims on social media. Um, if you're in my geography class, this is interesting. Boris Johnson is the prime minister, the leader of the United Kingdom, England. You see his tweet there. It's interesting to see what he has to say. Disgraceful scenes in the United States Congress. The United States stands for democracy around the world, and it is now vital that there should be a peaceful and orderly transfer of power. And again, if you're in my online social studies, we're really close to getting into this um, in terms of learning about the significance of that 1796 election, where it was heated, a lot like the 2020 election. Um, how did we get here post? If you're just now joining our live coverage, here's how the day unfolded. That mentions the Democrats taking control of the U.S. Senate. There's now the two Senate races in Georgia squared off against Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats had Raphael Warnock and John Assoff and Kelly Loeffler and God, I can't think of his name. Perdue is his last name. I'll look it up. David Perdue. There you go. He's the Republican senator. And my advice, because you're my students, is to kind of, when you're taking in a major event, I know a lot of it is pretty shocking almost to see this happening in our country. See Biden's commentary there. Facts about the 2020 election. President Trump has tried to overturn the election results. And again, you want to report the facts here. The BBC is trying their best to do it. Democrat Joe Biden won 306 votes to Trump's 232. The popular vote, Biden secured at least 7 million more ballots than Trump. But in the United States, the popular vote does not matter. It's about the Electoral College. Trump campaign has filed nearly 36 lawsuits challenging the election results. See a little point there. Trump's attorney general, top lawyer in the country, it's appointed by the president, said that there's no proof to back Trump's comments on election fraud. We see here 1632. If you're not familiar with like military time, this was at 4:30. I had this little post, shared a video from Trump, and one of the groups in the geography class is going to present a paper on what the president is allowed to do in terms of what his constitutional obligations are. We've covered a little bit about this in the online class as well. Can the president make claims like this? And, the president made a video. I'm not going to click on it because, again, it's social media. And it's the president clearly is taking a position that he thinks the election results are fraudulent. There's been no evidence that his election was fraudulent. And it's interesting to see this here. Twitter has actually limited the spread of this information because, quote, this claim of election fraud is disputed. This tweet can't be replied to, retweeted, or liked due to a risk of violence, which is interesting because of what's going on right now in Washington, D.C. Siege mentality sets in as night begins to fall. You see the person who wrote this message, Laura Trevelyan, the BBC World News. There it is. You can read that if you want. Again, social media is great in terms of like a primary source, something that is produced in that era, that time. Okay. And we have a picture of a Trump supporter in the office of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Members of Congress were actually inside the Capitol building when protesters were outside because they were inside certifying the election, the presidential election. More pictures, the people outside. Some more pictures of protesters. You know, we're still in a pandemic, and you see all these people around. Some of them you can see mask there, little face guard there, mask here, no mask here, no mask here. Madness. Protesters against police. Commentary from President-elect Biden. What are the rioters doing? Oh boy, it just updated. Sorry about that. Whoa. All right. No, there we go. That's a pretty stark image there. Again, if you're watching this video, this is just me taking in the news and seeing it all play out. I know tomorrow from my online social studies class, we will be talking about this in the Zoom discussion. You see multiple updates on this feed. Wow. And this was all happening when I was in school. Like, if you're a student of mine in my actual class, like not my actual class, my like geography class, as we were working on our papers and working on commenting on these things that have happened in our government, whether it is, you know, commenting on freedom of religion or the Articles of Confederation or the philosophy of government with John Locke. This is something that isn't really that American. American politics are divisive. That's normal. But what's not normal is people rioting and protesting because their political candidate lost an election. You know, I'm not saying it doesn't happen on a small scale. Maybe one or two people pop off and do something a little bit rash, but these are massive amounts of people that have stormed the Capitol building. We see Trump commented before the chaos began. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and end this video, and I will post this link so you all have access to the same thing that we're taking in. Um, Tomorrow's Zoom discussion for my online class will address these issues. And tomorrow for my class, I know after you read your papers and present your papers, you can definitely talk about, the qualities of a good citizen, because a good citizen should stand up for what they believe in. But what you don't want to do is totally demolish or try to overthrow a system that has worked for 200 plus years. There have been presidential elections in the past that have been quite interesting. Um, uh, Let me see if we can find this video on how a president is normally confirmed into office, and I'll end that video with that. So I'll type in BBC. Oh, there it is. How an election is supposed to be certified. I'm going to see if I can play this video and show you how it's supposed to be done, and it's not. This is not normal. So again, the BBC video that you're about to watch, if you're still watching, this is how an election is supposed to be certified. There's a little context there. And here we go. Congress has for more than 100 years maintained a set of rules that's intended to make these sessions counting electoral votes as mechanical and uncontroversial as possible.
This one is different than all the others.
Hold it up to the light.
Usually they're fairly pro forma sessions. You have on multiple occasions in the past occasionally had people try and use it as an opportunity to present speeches in this joint session, object to particular motions.
Is there objection? I must object.
Mr. President, I object.
The vice president is not really supposed to play a very substantive role, and certainly not a determinative role in determining who is elected president.
Suspend. The gentleman will suspend.
No function. 87 voting machines are predominantly active.
The last election was very controversial. You had some members of Congress who wanted to raise objections and bring attention to issues on the floor.
I object. I have an objection.
The objection is signed by a member of the House, but not yet by a member of the Senate.
And generally, Vice President Biden kind of knocked out and raised objections to and found those efforts not in order because they just weren't part of the proceeding.
It is over.
Almost every vice president that we've seen do this in the past, including vice presidents who themselves lost election as president, they almost uniformly shared this session relatively straightforward, telling members of their own party, the election is done, it's over, we need to move on and deal with the consequences of that. So after the 2000 elections, which were highly contested, you saw people come to the floor trying to object and kind of make floor speeches that then Vice President Al Gore usually ruled out of order and interrupted and said that's not an appropriate motion.
And it's a sad day in America, Mr. President, when we can't find a senator to sign the gentleman objections. Gentleman will suspend. The gentleman will suspend. The chair thanks the gentleman from Illinois, but hey.
He actually applied that rule so strictly that he really established a precedent, but it's been followed by subsequent vice presidents.
May God bless our new president and our new vice president, and may God bless the United States of America.
Pretty interesting stuff. So there you have it. And our country will move on from this. We will be okay. But right now, we just take it all in and go from there. I'll see you in class tomorrow. I'll see you on Zoom tomorrow for my online classes. Have a good night. Bye-bye.